Depression Baby. Stories about growing up in Appalachia and other things too. With my dad, Ray B. Rogers.
On August 16th, 1929, I came into this world kicking and screaming. I reckon that made me a Depression Baby.
Depression Baby is a World Songs media production. Brought to you by Depression Baby the Book, available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover, and soon audiobook at raybrogers.com.
Every boy needed one. Every boy needed one, at least every boy who lived in the country needed one. I don't know about city boys, but I reckon the need wasn't as great in town, and might even be a hazard to city dwellers. Why did boys need one? Well, it was just part of being a boy, and they did fit very well in the back pocket of overalls. I believe Norman Rockwell recognized this in one of his paintings. Where did you get one? Certainly not at Toys R Us, because toy stores just weren't here in our world. Maybe there were toy stores in New York City, or maybe Chicago. Every self-respecting boy knew where to look for one, out in the woods. You just looked until you found a tree that had grown a limb with a Y configuration, and you cut it off. You whittled it smooth with your trusty pocket knife. Every boy also had to have a pocket knife. Today it's illegal to take a pocket knife to school. Back in the 30s, I suppose a boy would just stay home if he couldn't take his pocket knife to school. I don't remember that they were a danger to mankind at that point in history. Speaking of staying home from school, my Uncle Hugh Medford did not start to school until he was about 8 years old. He preferred to stay at home and work in his mother's country store. Maggie Medford, his mother, was apparently okay with this, and she may have taught him his letters and how to read while working in the store. This unconventional start in education evidently did not damage Uncle Hugh, since he subsequently was graduated from North Carolina State University with a degree in civil engineering, and he was at the top of his class. He had a distinguished career, including being city manager of Greensboro, North Carolina. There is a street in Greensboro named after him. But I digress. Back to the subject at hand. After a boy finds an appropriate forked limb, he then needs an inner tube. A boy would be out of luck today with the advanced technology of tubeless tires. Back in the days of tires with inner tubes, fixing flat tires was a way of life. Every car owner had a kit to repair or patch inner tubes. When a rubber inner tube was beyond repair, it would be turned over to a boy, who extended its useful life by cutting it into strips in order to complete the manufacture of, guess what? A slingshot, which then occupied a boy's time as he increased his skill level to where he could load his slingshot with a rock and hit a nearby tree or fence post every time. There were plenty of rocks around since many of us lived on gravel roads. Also, acorns were good ammunition. This type of slingshot is not to be confused with the type of slingshot used by the shepherd boy David, who later became King David. The type of slingshots used in biblical times by shepherd boys were much more deadly, as the giant Goliath came to realize as he fell before his army, mortally wounded by a shepherd boy and his slingshot. However, there was a boy who lived in the Iron Duff community when I was in the slingshot stage of life. This boy was from a poor family, and he used his slingshot to kill rabbits and put food on the family table. When I said that every boy needed one, I was referring to recreational use. However, this poor boy from Arnduff and his family really needed one.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Depression Baby. And if you did, my dad has one important request. If this podcast brought a little smile to your day, would you please consider right now subscribing for free to the podcast and kindly leaving a nice 5-star rating and review on iTunes. You can make the difference in getting Depression Baby in front of a wider audience and help preserve this disappearing legacy. If you need any help with how to subscribe to the podcast, just go to RayBRogers.com and look for the podcast tab on the main menu. Thanks to our audio and musical contributors, including our friend Lobo Loco. You can find out more about him and all the rest of the music and audio in the show notes at, you guessed it, RayBRogers.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Depression Baby.